just to start us off, I'm just going to be talking about my own journey into medicine. So as I said earlier, I'm currently the BMA Medical Students Committee co-chair alongside Lara. And getting into medicine and getting to university is always a really interesting journey because it almost sums up your high school and your sixth form experience and kind of puts you on your path to where you might want to go in the future. So this is all the lovely things I've been able to do whilst I've been at university, things I've enjoyed very, very much. There's me presenting my post at a conference at the BMA House, a very lovely building, and also getting scrubbed up for surgery. But obviously there's a beginning to all things. So this is the young me sitting at the computer, knowing the path that would be in front of me yet to come. So where did it all start? So I actually moved from Germany to Luton at the age 9. Luton, famously known for its airport. That's what most people know it for. And you know, GCSEs at the time where we had letters instead of numbers. I'm pretty sure you've heard that joke multiple times now. But they were an area that I really enjoyed. There was a lot of flexibility which you could do, and I did quite well in my GCSEs. And so I got the grades that I needed to put me on a nice playing field for all the different things I might want to do in the future. Obviously, they're not at the time. You know, some people said, you know, you might want to get all A stars, you want to get, you know, 5 A stars to get into medicine, but it's not that important. It's more about what you do in sixth form and the choices that you make from there and the experience that you get. And at the time, I was really keen on medicine as one of my many career options. So I thought about perhaps, you know, doing something in chemistry or biology, teaching, and all things I was interested in. But then why did I settle on medicine? So I wanted to do a degree that would put me on a nice railroad track to my future. I like my little details when I'm planning things, but I also like knowing where my path is heading. And psychiatry was an area that really caught my interest. So I knew through medicine, it could be something I could explore further. So it was great flexibility as well in medicine. So if it happened to be that I didn't want to do psychiatry, I could change things up. I could do something else. And there's always constant learning. You're always learning when you're in medicine. There's always new things that are coming out, new vaccines that are being created, new treatments that are being made. And I really like the fact that every day can look different. There are great opportunities in medicine, and I've been able to engage with a lot of them already. Even at the university level, there are so many things that medical students get up to. I've had the opportunity to travel to different countries and see things, to get on stage and perform and put on plays. And it's been really, really great to have all those options available to me, and also meet such a range of brilliant people. So A-levels are something that a lot of you will start thinking about. I know those in year 10, those in year 11 will feel a lot more closer. And at the time, my A-levels were difficult, to say the least. So EdExcel and have their slogan, advancing and learning, changing lives. And I can definitely tell you that they changed my life for the worse, because this was honestly one of the most stressful times in my life. So at the time, I did chemistry, physics, biology, and maths. And we had all year 12 mock exams, and things looked okay. You know, they're not great, but they weren't horrific. So, you know, chemistry C, maths B, biology B, physics C. But to get into medicine, which I really, really wanted to do at the time, I needed to get 3 A's. So, you know, this wasn't quite where I needed to be. So I knew that in year 13, I really had to step up what I did and really push those grades up. So I dropped physics and I continued with the rest. And then we had our year 13 so we had our new exams and we had mock papers for those. And we did them around Christmas time, a nice Christmas present. The results were not a disaster, to put it frank. So I got a C in maths, I got a D in chemistry, I got an E in biology, and things were looking absolutely horrific because I was very far away from where I actually wanted to be. And so that year I spent battling my A-levels, and honestly, it was a battle. But obviously, you can kind of know what the conclusion to the journey is, considering I'm doing this talk to you today. So in the second round of mock exams, these were around the January time. It's still not looking great. It's a C, E, and E. So it's very, I always likened it to a bit like a boxing match. So, you know, round one didn't go too well. So you go into round two, but that didn't go well either, or round three. Then round three went badly as well. And then round four. So what happened in the end was that I didn't manage to get a single A in a mock paper the whole year. But for the final exams, so the final round in this boxing match, so to speak, I changed a lot of different things. And that's something I would encourage you guys to have a look at when you are revising for your GCSEs and when you are looking for different options. It's never a wrong thing to look at things and think, maybe I should try doing something different. So I changed my revision methods, and I looked through everything with a fine-tooth comb to see how I kept falling into the same pitfalls. So in the past, I kept relying perhaps on, you know, specific techniques or specific things I did in the past for my GCSEs, but it's important to review those and look at different things. So I was fortunate that my GCSEs and Year 12 mock results were in good standards, so I was able to convince my teachers to predict me the 3 A's I needed for medicine. But obviously then it was a lot about doing more work. So I did a lot more reading, I did a lot more flashcards, and I prepared for my interview. So I only got one offer, but one is all you need. And I was fortunate enough to receive an offer from University of Southampton, which was my first choice. However, I still needed to get the grades. So again, I tried doing different things. I started teaching others, so teaching them the things that we were learning to try and give myself a different perspective on things. And that's something I definitely encourage you guys to do as well. Work together and collaborate together, share the troubles you're having with each other, because if you work together, you'll always have a lot more success. And I did a lot more mock papers. And then when it comes to results day, like I said, it's like a boxing match. You only need one round for that knockout. So you only have to do it once. So, you know, maths A, chemistry A, biology A, all that I needed. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we've got two excellent speakers who are going to tell you more about their own journey and to answer some of the questions that you've also sent us. So this isn't to tell you that I'm an amazing individual, that I'm, you know, one of the best that you've ever seen. Actually, quite rather the opposite. This is to tell you that you don't need to be remarkable to get into medicine. You don't need to be remarkable to go on the journey that you want to get to. You don't need to be remarkable to go to university. Lots of hard work, a little bit of luck, and you can be a university student too. You can do anything that you want to put your mind to. And then at the end of the day, it's better to have tried than not tried at all. So what would I say to you to finish off this talk? I'd say use the resources available to you. When you have little resources, you can either wallow in the frustration or play it shrewd and smart. You'll feel desperate at times, and that's okay. You know, from my own background, we didn't have the biggest financial capital around. I remember asking my dad for a UCAT book to help me prepare for one of the exams that you do for medicine, and it was £40. The local library only had 3 copies and they were all on loan. And his reaction told me I was definitely not getting that book. But of course, I decided to be more creative with things, and I looked at the different societies, different websites that I could go on and do and use to my advantage. So we do live in a world where some students have the ability to pay £400 for masterclasses and all sorts of things, but you don't need it. Trust me. People have made it into medicine and university without any of that. Play it smart. Many university students that I've spoken to have spent so much time creating brilliant organizations and brilliant resources for you. And very often they're all free, especially for students from unwinding access backgrounds. Like I said, help each other. It's so important that you band together, you help your classmates, you help your friends, and ask them what they need help with. So, you know, just practicing with them that one interview for something can be a massive help. Keep asking questions, just like you sent in questions today for us to have a look at. Having those questions is so important, because there is no such thing as a stupid question. And the more you ask questions, the more you know, the more you'll learn. Take a plunge, try something new. University is such a great experience. You've got so many options available to you. The university degrees could honestly varies in such amount, and the more you look for things and the more you ask those questions, then more you'll see what options you have available to you. So I would definitely say, take a plunge, try something new. If you decided that you're going to do, let's say, an arts degree, there's so many different variations in arts degree. So maybe there's an arts degree course that has something a little bit different and you might want to give a go at. And know what you apply for and you're entitled to. So do speak to your careers advisors, ask them, say, is there any financial help that I can gain access to? Or are there any courses that I can go that can help me that, aren't going to put you out of pocket? Or are there any things that your high school offers you? And to finish off, before I hand over to our next speaker, I would just echo what I mentioned earlier, which is luck is not chance, it's toil. Fortune's expenses, smiles earned, which is what Emily Dickinson said. So it's a bit odd because I put this quote up here, but I actually disagree with Emily Dickinson. She's obviously far, far more accomplished than I am, but luck is most definitely a factor that exists. But I agree with the sentiment. When you work hard, you'll find that luck seems to find itself to you more often. Not everyone who wants to be a physician, a doctor, or a medical student, a university student can do it straight away. Some people need to do a different course and then go for a graduate route, or maybe come back to it later. Or some people will decide in the end it's not for them. Regardless, be open to new experiences and failure, see what life holds for you, and see how things shake out. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you over to James Brawn, who's a second year medical student at Swansea, and he'll give you his presentation. Over to you, James.
Thank you, Ray. Let me just see if I can share my presentation. Half the battle's getting this up and running. So lovely. Can you see my presentation, Ray? Perfect.
Indeed.
Wonderful. Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name's James Brawn, and I'm a medical student from Swansea University. And I'm going to give you a little talk this morning, which is, what do I want to be when I grow up? So I'll start off by briefly introducing myself. Who am I? So I actually have a few different roles. So I'm a clinical tutor at Cardiff University. This is a picture of me being out on an outreach project in Malawi, accompanying students across in 2018, so pre-COVID. I also work as an optometrist. So this is a picture of me during the first wave working at the University Hospital Wales in Cardiff. And I'm also now a medical student at Swansea University. This was a picture I recently took on placement. And in regards to my background, I'm from Pembrokeshire, down in West Wales. I attended a bottom 10 secondary school in Wales in regards to ranking, so it wasn't the school which was traditionally associated with people going to university or studying medicine. And due to sort of my family sort of circumstances, etc., I was in receipt of free school meals. And I was the first member of my family not just to go to university, but actually to stay on to the end of compulsory education. None of my cousins, etc., stayed on for A levels, etc. So I'm very much the anomaly when it comes to my family. So what is my talk going to be about today? And it's going to be 5 things I wish I knew at the age of 15. And these are: it is okay if you don't know what you want to do. Your journey is unique to you. Failure doesn't define you and isn't the end. Experience is the key and is usually another way. So we'll go on to the first one. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do. So let's go back in time and talk to me when I was a teenager. So this is me, acne, no beard, as many of us would be at the time, and I'm sure many of you may well be at the moment. I was a normal teenager. I liked playing video games, like my rugby and music. Academically, I was okay. I wasn't top of the class, but I definitely wasn't near the bottom by any means. I really enjoyed science, sort of physics, sort of biology, chemistry, etc. But I really enjoyed music and drama. I was quite creative in that aspect. And I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. The first time it came into mind was when we had a careers teacher arrange an interview with us all at the age of 15. And I remember absolutely dying of horror when they said to me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I had no idea. So to give you a bit of an idea of my thought processes through sort of year 10, 11, 12, and 13. These are all the options I went through. So first things first, I thought, well, I'm quite a good musician, so how about I become a professional jazz trombonist? I thought about it for a while, but I didn't want my favourite thing in the world to actually be my job. It might put me off. So I thought, right, I'm an Air Cadets, let's be Top Gun, let's be a fighter pilot. And after a few weeks, I remembered I'm actually absolutely mortally terrified of heights, so it probably wasn't for me. So then I thought, let's actually be involved with helping fix and make the plane. Let's go into aerospace engineering. And then this is around about the time I had a careers talk at school, and they said, you don't have to go to university and do fancy things. Why not consider going into the police or something similar? So I thought, let's go into the police. But after a short period of time, I realised when I was watching these sort of cops on the TV sort of programs, you can get shouted at, sworn at, punched, etc. It wasn't for me. So I thought, let's hide inside. I like numbers. Let's be an accountant. I changed my mind. I thought, let's become a physicist. That looks really cool. Big Bang Theory, etc. And I completely then did a U-turn and thought, actually, no pun intended, but let's play with U-turns and go into plumbing. I changed my mind again. I thought, right, how about I become a rock star? Let's become a geologist. And then I remembered we live in Wales. It's raining all the time. So I thought I'd probably want to have a bit of a mix. Let's go into surveying, like my sort of father had done. And then I went, actually, no idea. I'm going to become an optometrist. The reason why I'm sharing all this with you is just to sort of let you know that it's okay if you have about 101 different ideas across sixth form, etc. That's quite normal. So a question I sort of ask, if I sort of face-to-face with you all, I'd have you shout out a number, but it's quite a simple question. At what age did I know what I wanted to be? And the answer to that is, I was 28. 13 years after I was first asked the question by the careers tutor. A little bit late, but it doesn't really matter. I got there sort of in the end. So I go on to my second point, sort of learning point, which is your journey is unique to you. So this is the sort of journey which you've probably been taught. You start off in school, you get your GCSEs, your A levels, you may go to university, get a bachelor's, master's, etc. And generally it's quite a binary option. You either keep educating or you leave for work. Nice linear path. This is how I used to think it was until I actually started working, etc. And I'm going to tell you, even though that can be the case, it is not always like that. Let me share with you my path. So started off in school, and out of that I got a part-time job at local Specsavers in sixth form. And these two things both combined to me doing my bachelor's degree in optometry and vision science at Cardiff. Once I finished there, I went back into work. I was working at the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend and an optometrist in Pencoed. But I didn't feel it was quite for me. So I returned back to Cardiff to do a master's in philosophy and vision science and psychology. Alongside that, I also did a postgraduate certificate in IK governance. And after a few years, ended up working for the test and trace when we hit the pandemic. I also ended up in a governmental role with the Association of Optometrists. And after I finished my MPhil, I actually ended up teaching at Cardiff University, teaching for a postgraduate group within the university and assessing for the College of Optometrists. I also ended up working as an optometrist for the NHS. And all of these things eventually led to me coming to Swansea to do medicine. And a combination of that and my experience with the Association of Optometrists brought me to where I am with a BMA today. Now, the reason why I'm showing this isn't some sort of brag. It's more just to show how things aren't linear. You're always making progress. You're moving on to different things all the time. And I like the phrase, all roads lead to Rome. Your journey can be very, very different to someone else, but you may well get to the same destination. Go on to my third point. Failure doesn't define you and it isn't the end. So I'm going to do something which no one should ever really do. And I'm going to sort of pull apart and tell you the truth about my CV. So some of you may not be familiar with this sort of thing, but yeah, there's a sort of social media platform called LinkedIn. And it's basically like a sort of Facebook, but for work. So you put on there sort of all your academic achievements, what you do for work, etc. It's quite good for networking. It's very good if you want to get a bit of a flair for the type of people who might be in the roles. This is my sort of account here. I'm going to tell you what's on my LinkedIn and actually the truth behind each thing. So what does my CV say? It says I have A levels in maths, physics and geography. I've got an upper second class degree from Cardiff. Got a place on my master's degree. I completed my master's and I'm a national councillor for the Association of Optometrists. and I've been an examiner for the College of Optometrists, and I'm the BMA rep for Swansea. What actually happened is I got my A-levels, but I failed 4 exams in upper 6th, which meant I missed my university offer. You don't put that on your CV, but that's the truth. I did get my sort of upper 2nd class degree. I did so by 0.1%, having failed modules along the way. I got a place on my master's degree. No one else applied. So it was a pretty easy interview process. And the reason why I had an MPhil is I actually had got accepted onto a PhD program. But as I hadn't performed well enough during the process, I technically failed my PhD, and that's why I had a master's degree at the end. My positions with the AOP Council, college, and BMA all have one thing in common. I'm the only person who applied. So I'm not here to sort of assassinate my own character and turn around and say I'm no good in any way. But it's more to sort of illustrate that what people see in regards to on your CV, or what they may see from your position, whatever you may do, no one knows the story behind it. And if you're looking at someone, let's say you go in to see your doctor who you might see may not have been the top of their class. So you don't need to feel the pressure that if you're going into any fields like this, that you have to be the very best, the very best. And a few little pieces of advice which I've sort of had from people. No one will ask you how many exams you failed of your life. No one will ask you how long you took on your journey. And no one will ask you if you were one of the worst in the year. So bear these in mind. So we'll go on to our sort of final stanza now. How do I choose what I want to do? So my undergraduate dissertation looked up why people went into optometry. So I know I'm doing medicine now, but looked into optometry. And basic conclusion I came to is that 23% of the people on the course didn't actually want to do optometry originally. They fell into it. And what changed their mind? Experience. This is a highly cited aspect. And when I asked sort of what made them change their mind as well, it was work experience, being hands-on in the role they wanted to do. And for those who are a bit more visually orientated, I literally threw in all the responses I had into a piece of software. The bigger the word, the more frequently it was mentioned and used by someone. And you see 3 of the largest ones are work, experience, and working. And what the general gist that I've discovered is that experience is crucial in regards to your future planning. If you want to do medicine, see if you can get into a GP's practice. If you want to do optometry, see if you can sit with an optometrist. If you want to do something non-medical, if you want to do accountancy, if you want to do IT, get in, have a go, see if you like it. If you love it, it's for you. Whereas if you go in and go, this is the worst day of my life, it's been absolutely hideous, probably worth finding out now, but after you've done a degree in it. And the final little advice is what to do if things don't go to plan, because for me, things have not gone to plan over the years. Don't panic. A degree is only a gateway into the job you want. There's different options, there's different routes to going in. These are things you may need to explore in the future, or should at least have an awareness of. There's access courses, foundation degrees. You can get qualifications and accreditations through working in various industries, which will essentially get you up to degree level without doing a degree. You can work in the field in a different role, which can be used as an access route. So some people may be working in, let's say if it's an optics, you may work as a dispensing optician and then make the move to do an optometry. And there's other options such as the Open University where you can study part-time, or if you feel as though you need to, you can redo your A-levels and try again in 12 months' time. So essentially, the take-home messages I want for you, because I want to make this talk sort of less about me and more about what I wanted to know or what I should have known when I was a teenager, and it's these 5 messages. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do. Your journey is unique to you. Even if you don't know the destination, that's fine. Failure doesn't define you and isn't the end. If something interests you, try and get some experience, give it a go, try before you buy, as it were. And finally, if things don't go to plan, don't panic. There's always other routes. And if you think about what I showed you earlier on, my route has not been linear to medicine, but I'm here now. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, James, for your brilliant presentation. I can personally speak from my experience of knowing you. You are a great rep for BMA, so it doesn't matter that no one applied. They got the best. Okay, so we've got Dr. Iona Collins with us. However, we're just sorting out a couple of tech issues, and then we'll be able to show you her on screen. She'll be able to give you her presentation. But as you can see from James's presentation, there are many different routes that you can have to get into medicine, get into university, and it's always really important to make sure that you're looking at all the different options that are available to you. So if today's really, getting your attention, really getting your nerves firing, you're wondering, oh, what should I think? What should I do for university? Do definitely go and have a chat with your careers advisor. Perhaps they, talk to your parents if they have any experiences of, going to university, or they've had friends that have gone to university. There might be someone that you can speak to that will give you some advice. Okay. Aha, we've got. Okay, Dr. Iona is with us now.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can indeed hear you. So...
Awesome! Wait! Apparently I'm invisible. I get that a lot. And next thing, shall I try sharing my screen and see if that works?
Yes,
so,
please.
right, okay, let's see. Put the volume up as well. So, and let's see how this works. Get rid of all of that. All my stuff in the background, calculator, and Teams, Keynote, presenting, surgery pre-talk. Any good?
I can see it. All good.
Awesome, great. Okay, so this is a talk that I put together a little bit tongue-in-cheek and thought it might be useful for this webinar, which basically says, yeah, I'm an orthopaedic surgeon and it's the best career in the world, of course. Well, actually, what the title should be is, well, how I ended up as a surgeon in the first place. I certainly didn't expect to end up as a spinal surgeon based in Swansea. That wasn't something that I'd ever planned. And I firmly believe in the Hawaiian quote that the unaimed arrow never misses its target. And that's been my mantra throughout my life, really, is always to keep my options open. So just to take you back to the beginning, that's me there, age 9, looking all sweet and having no idea what I'd be doing in the future in a Welsh school. My career choices, unfortunately, we do get influenced by other people. So I have this quite a strong, vivid recollection when I was asked, as I was a very nerdy child, and still am, and I'm proud of it. And I was asked, what do you want to be when you're older? So I don't know, I quite fancy the idea of doing law or something like that, and all it took was a little bit of a stifled giggle to just dispel that in one. It's amazing how little things like that can make such a difference to our own thought processes. We're so easily influenced by other people. So I didn't look further in that respect, and quite enjoyed the sciences, carried on through school, did my A-levels. That was some comic relief photo there in one of the science classes. I think that was physics, that one actually. From there, I ended up with A-levels in physics, chemistry, biology. My chemistry, I didn't do too well in A-level actually. I did well enough for some medical schools, but not for the one that I wanted in London. And I ended up having to take a year off before going to medical school, which I worked in a factory to build up some money. Then I went off to France and worked in a hotel, again to make some money, but also to learn some French. Did a bit of skiing as it happened. Then went down to the south of France and worked in some kiddies adventure thing where I taught kids how to sail. Because I'd been doing some sailing during school. There was a council sponsored initiative to get kids into outdoor pursuits. So then I went to Barts Medical School in London and tried to study as best as possible, sort of work hard and play hard, really. So my elective was out in Vancouver. From there I went off to Hawaii to have a bit of a break after my elective in paediatric neurosurgery, and got qualified. But before that, I remember one of my lectures was one of my lectures. We were asked, you know, who's considering a career in surgery? Now, that was something which I had thought about, but I hadn't really focused on at that point. I was keeping my options open. So a few of us put our hands up, thinking about it. Fair enough, yeah. And then we were told, well, actually, all you girls out there, you can put your hands down because you're going to get married and have kids, and that's not compatible with being a surgeon. And I thought, I don't know. Maybe I could be that one person who's a female who could actually be a surgeon. And I don't know if I ended up being a surgeon despite people's thoughts, or because that was what I actually wanted to do. And I'll never know the answer to that. I wasn't really ready to qualify straight away. I found the idea of being a doctor very daunting. I had no experience of doctors. No one in my family had been to university before, so this was all very new. So I managed to get some sponsorship to do an additional year of BSc in immunology in 1995. There's some of the lab people there, and got involved with other things during medical school, like rowing, which I was very keen on at the time. That's just before we all disappeared and went our separate ways. And there's me brandishing my certificate like a weapon before I go off to do whatever I'm going to do next. So we then go into house officer years, and I appreciate that this has changed now. We call this foundation years instead. And this feels like a trial by fire. And it's a little bit, if you remember going from primary school to secondary school, you have, I don't know if this still happens, but in primary school, we were told all these horror stories about what was going to happen in secondary school, like these enormous big BCG needles we were going to have about TB and things like that. It was all pretty scary. And so we used to get these messages handed down to us in medical school that being a house officer was absolutely terrible. And we were all a bit nervous about qualifying. Anyway, it was busy, and it was a never-ending ward round doing medicine, and it was gone with the days of rowing and having any activities outside of work. For the first 3 months, it was absolutely just the job and trying to snatch sleep. It was pretty hardcore, and then 3 months of stroke medicine, elderly care. And my next 6 months was going to be in Whipps Cross, which had the reputation of being the busiest hospital in Europe with mile-long corridors, and it had the reputation of making or breaking people. I didn't really like the sound of that. As a BMA member, I was reading my BMJ careers side thing at the back. I always do that. And this last minute fixed term contract for a house officer came out in Jersey to start as soon as possible. I think someone had dropped out last minute. And I was thinking, oh, Whipps Cross, Jersey, Whipps Cross, Jersey. I mean, Whipps Cross, you're going to get all the contacts that you need, great for surgery if that's the direction I'm going to go. I've learned loads. Is that what I want to do? Or do I want to cut loose and go off to the middle of nowhere, no contacts, career suicide, I'm not going to learn anything? Yeah, it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. So off I went to Jersey, and it was great. Loads of surfing, loads to do, and I had a fantastic supervisor who asked me, do you fancy orthopaedic surgery? You know, you seem pretty good at this as an assistant. And I was like, yes. And he said, I've got quite a few contacts, so I can make a few phone calls, and you might want to go for the Oxford rotation because that's got a pretty good reputation. I was like, okay, so I went for it, and I think because I was under the impression that someone had absolute confidence in me, that gave me confidence in myself, and I got a place. It was great. So I did my basic surgical rotation in Oxford, and from there I did a standalone job in neurosurgery in Plymouth because I thought that might be something I would like to do as a career. Plymouth taught me that that wasn't my niche, and from there I thought, you know what, I'm just going to learn a bit more about orthopaedics before I really go for it. So off I went to New Zealand for a year, and got a registrar job there, which again was awesome, traveling around South Island, taking my then boyfriend with me, who I met as a house officer in just after being in Jersey, and again, no contacts. You could see that as career suicide, to go right off the grid to somewhere else, but loads of skiing, loads of injuries, and they pay for all your courses. It was really awesome. And from there, I found a job again through the BMJ for a standalone job in Scotland. So I just needed to get back into the UK after working in New Zealand, because there were virtually no training numbers coming up in New Zealand. So I had a better chance at getting into orthopaedics to train in the UK. So I got into an orthopaedic registrar job in Scotland. From there, got onto the registrar rotation for orthopaedics back in Oxford again. And then I got a spinal fellowship because I enjoyed spinal surgery. My supervisors in spine were so phenomenal. They were really inspiring, and I'm sure there's a lot of influence with who you work with as to where you tend to gravitate towards. So I'm sure it was thanks to them that I ended up going in for spinal surgery, got a fellowship in Nottingham. Then from there I went off to Australia for the best part of the year to do some more fellowship training into spinal deformity and children's spines in Sydney. And Nottingham liked me, so they gave me a consultant job from there, which I went back to, and gave birth to my son, who attended a meeting with me. It was full on in Nottingham, so that's his first course attendance certificate, which was based in Edinburgh when I was doing a talk on spinal cord monitoring. And then I just wanted to come home. I found Nottingham really busy and full on, which is fantastic, but I wanted something a little bit more than that. I enjoy living my life as well as working, and my family's at home in Swansea, in Siarad Cymraeg. I'm Welsh, and I've ended up back not far away from where I grew up. That's my daughter. And this is the sort of stuff we've been doing locally around the Gower. Top right are some of my colleagues who I work with. As you can see, we're all very professional and totally sane. So my message to you all is that nobody really knows what you want. You don't know who knows what they want to do in 5, 10, 20 years time. You know, I don't know what I want to do tomorrow. So I think it's important to try and keep your options open. For me, medicine did exactly that. It is such a diverse specialty. You really can find a niche pretty much anywhere that's going to suit you, whether you're an extrovert, introvert, a bookworm, someone who's hands-on, patient-facing, patient non-facing. It's all there, and I think having the sciences is helpful, because it is basically it's engineering of the human body. But other than that, I think that's it, really. I don't know if you can ask me any questions on this. I'm not sure how this is set up. Any questions? There's fine. No such thing as a bad question, and that's it. Now, how do I unshare? You all still there? It's gone.
Yeah, go into Teams
quiet.
and you can unclick it.
I'm in Teams. Oh, I think you're stuck with me for the rest of the day. I'm gonna have to go into my email. Okay.
That's right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Q&A session now. So James and Dr. Iona, they've actually sent us questions in already. So I've got all these questions here, and what we'll do is I'll ask you them, and you can, of course, give them some very, very helpful answers. Your presentations have been brilliant. Thank you so much to the both of you. So just to start off with, what's the best thing you feel you've seen or gotten to be involved with in your job? And I'll send that question off to Dr. Iona first.
The best thing that I've seen, the best experience that I had, sounds disgusting. When I was first given a knife, and I put it in the foot, and I opened the class to an abscess, and I breakfast, but it was the moment of my life when I did my first operation. It was stab first, and it was like, oh my god, this is the surgeon. So that was one of my most memorable occasions.
Ah, quite an interesting choice. James, what about yourself? Or is it also a pus-related one?
No, not quite. I think probably sort of the coolest or sort of best thing I've seen in my career. So this goes back to my sort of optometry background, but it's very sort of relevant to the medical side. I just had somebody come in for a routine appointment. Absolutely everything's fine. And I'm literally just about going to sort of say cheerio to them. And I noticed that they have developed a sort of torsional nystagmus. So for those watching it means the eyes sort of just involuntary twitch like this. And I was like, this is really weird. And I couldn't place why. So I called a hospital and they said they see this gentleman who's only about 17. Turns out he'd had some sort of mid-brain tumour that had just come out of nowhere. And if I hadn't have sent him up then, it would have only been a few weeks until it would have been inoperable and fatal. So from my perspective, it was absolutely amazing to see. Obviously, from his perspective, not amazing to have, of course. But it just made me realise how just small subtle things we can notice can make literally life, can change someone's life for the better. So that's one that stands out to me.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about the jobs and things that roles we find ourselves in, is that we see such different things and different experiences. And on that topic, James, what have you enjoyed the most about studying medicine?
I think, and this is not to be cliche in any way, but I'm fortunate enough that the course in Swansea is full of graduates, so we're all coming in from very diverse backgrounds. So yeah, I'll be working with people who were teachers, who were pharmacists, we have somebody who was an actor, and the reason why he got interested in medicine, that he was an extra on Holby City. He went, this looks cool, I'll do this. But it's just been amazing meeting people of such a vast different backgrounds and experiences. And this was, and this holds true for when I got started getting involved with BMA, where you just meet people who have a shared passion regardless of background. And yeah, that's been the most amazing thing. It's pretty much just been my contemporaries, my colleagues, the people who I'll be working with in the future.
Yeah, I definitely echo that sentiment. It's been great to meet a lot of different medical students from different walks of lives, different backgrounds, different experiences. Dr. Iona, I know you've spoken a lot about the traveling that you did manage to do, the different people you met, all really, really amazing things. If you had to pick one thing that was your favorite part that you couldn't have gone without, what would it be?
God, my favorite that I couldn't have gone without. I don't know really. I think if I hadn't had mentors, then I probably have quit at some point in my medical career, because it's actually being so committed that you know that come hell or high water, you're going to be a doctor because that's what you've always dreamt of since you were small. It's not like that. It's more like the more that you put in, the more that you don't want to give up. You want to get there. It's almost like seeing a big mountain in front of you and saying, I'm going to get you. I'm going to go for that because it's a challenge. It's there. I'm curious, and this is what I want. But it's tough, and there are moments where you think, oh, is it worth it? This is really hard. And that's when it's very helpful. It's essential that you've got people around you who are supportive, and not supportive as in making you a cup of tea, but believe in you, and that gives you the confidence to keep going, to have confidence in yourself. So I think if people had lacked confidence in me, I'm not sure if I'd have kept confidence in myself to just keep going, and that's it really. So yeah.
Yeah, so working hard, feeling that you really want to go for it, getting more attached to it because you've put in so much energy and effort into it, right? I think we've got obviously a lot of young individuals in the room listening to this at the minute. Is there any advice you give to them on finding that mentor that really helps you, gives you that push, gives you that faith that you can do it, you are capable of doing it?
Well, all I can say is try and keep your options open. I think that's really important. I've always done a bit of try before you buy, a bit of window shopping. So before I went into medical school, I spoke with my GP. I managed to bag my way in to see one of the A&E consultants. I went around the radiography department. They were awesome, the radiographers, and just give me an insight into different aspects of how medical healthcare works, because at one point I thought maybe I wanted to work in a laboratory and I wasn't interested in being a doctor. So keep your options open, take a look at these different things to think, well, is that something I could see myself doing? Sometimes things that can appear really exciting, take a look at what the career progression is as well, because some things are a bit sort of glass ceiling-y, which you don't realise until you're already in, and that's something that you tend not to get in medicine. You can just keep going, and look at salaries. I know that's really basic to talk about money, but at the end of the day, a job is all about getting a different pay packet at the end of the month. What are you going to do with it? So take a look at those. Take a look at that as well. Try and piggyback on to other people. So if anyone's near Swansea, for example, you can get work experience here relatively easily, and I'm sure you can elsewhere as well. I think that's really important. It's good for the CV, good for interviews too. And that's it, really. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that part you mentioned about, try before you buy beautifully echoes James's talk as well. So I'd like to bring James in. To finding work experience, what advice would you give people to trying to get that work experience so they can do that try before you buy?
I think it's basically a case you just have to get yourself out there, which I know can be easier said than done. Naturally, the barrier which most people will see when gaining work experience is going, I literally have no idea who to ask, which is a very, very fair sort of concern to have. But if you're there going, I wouldn't mind getting some work experience with my local GP, best thing to do would be to literally go in, walk up to reception and turn around and say, I'm in school at the moment, I want to become a doctor, who can I talk to about this? Ask that question. Because they may say, oh, Dr. Jones is in this afternoon. Can you pop back at 2? They'll have a chat with you and see what they can do. Because even if you don't know who to talk to, I can guarantee that if you go into somewhere like a GP surgery or into a hospital and ask something along the lines of, do you know who I can talk to? You will be told. And once you've got that contact, you're in. And it makes a lot of difference. And also, once you get used to doing that, because something which I know that is quite crucial in medicine, I'm sure Ray could echo this as well, is that something which is very highly valued is showing enthusiasm and showing that you want something. And it doesn't have to be dog eat dog, I want to have everything over everyone else in the world, but it just has to be going, I'm interested in this, literally knock on someone's door and going, I like what you do, can I have a look? And that is how a lot of opportunities come about. I know with my career, the reason why I ended up going into research, the reason why I ended up going into medicine eventually, literally was me knocking on doors and saying, I know it sounds weird, I'm interested in this, how can I sort of come in for a session? And it's from there that everything grew. And if I hadn't asked a few people slightly awkward questions, I would probably not be sat here giving you the talk right now. So literally just be a bit bold. No one will think you're rude. No one will think you're rude for asking. And what's the worst that happens when you ask? They might turn around and say, sorry, we don't know. Well, that's exactly the situation you're in if you don't ask. So it's worth asking and just put yourself out there.
Yeah, be a bit bold. And I know there will be some people watching at the minute that aren't too keen on doing medicine, might be thinking about other parts, but I think that advice just applies to everything. Be bold, try different things, ask questions, be enthusiastic. Now, we had a question from someone saying, what would you say to someone who isn't the most confident person about the working world? So they're a little bit shy, they're not too sure about working, and, they are still quite young. We're talking to students that are 15, 16. Is there any advice that you'd have for them, Dr. Iona?
Well, rather than turning up to a GP, if you think, oh, I'm not sure, that's not my style, you could always go for the option that I went for, because I couldn't go knocking around hospital doors in New Zealand when I was working in Plymouth. So I just got onto Google and I got every address for every hospital in New Zealand. There weren't that many at the time, it was like 30 odd. So it's like this massive pile of letters out saying, anyone got a job for me, because I'm quite interested. So there's nothing stopping you. And now I work for solicitors outside the NHS. And when I first started doing work for them, as an aside, doing medical legal work, I did the same thing then. I just Googled all the solicitors in South Wales, sent out 70 odd letters and said, here I am. And then just wait to see what comes back. And that worked really well. New Zealand worked really well. You can Google who are your GP practices, who are your hospitals locally, put a letter together. Look, if you want me to take a look at it, I'm more than willing to help you with that. That's easy. And just send it out and see what comes back, cast the net. And you don't have to be an extrovert to do that, and just see what happens next.
Definitely. And also, I guess one thing to mention as well is that you are quite young at this stage in your life as well. And there's a lot of things that will happen. You'll have a lot more different experiences, and perhaps one day you won't be completely extroverted at the end of the day, but you'll learn to work around it in different ways, just like just mentioned there. James, was there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think it's a case of, to a certain extent, getting yourself out of it and not necessarily panicking about whether any work or job you may get might be relevant to your final destination. It's, for example, the first job I actually ever had was was making number plates in the Halfords, which obviously has nothing to do with anything which I've gone into afterwards. But it was the fact I was meeting people. Members of the Great British Republic. At 15, I had no idea how to talk to someone who was not 15. So you'd be amazed what sort of random skills, especially communication or soft skills, you gain from having a job. And it is daunting. But I just found a job like that great. And sort of perversely, ironically, I did an ophthalmology exam last year, an exam called the Dugard exam. And we had a question basically talking about number plates, would you believe? So talk about going full circle. But you don't know what skills you pick up in jobs. So if you're going, I'm not quite sure about work, just go for a job which interests you. It doesn't have to be your final end of the line job. If it's just working in a coffee shop, if it is just helping in the local corner shop, if it's getting a part-time job at the supermarket, etc., it's absolutely fine. So it's just going in. And the best thing is, at your age, if you give a part-time job a go and absolutely hate it, it's not your job for life. So you can always stop.
Of course, yeah. Go for it, Dr. Iona.
Just to add on to that, I do have friends who have gone back into further education later in the game, and you're right, options are always open. But on the other hand, there's a difference between working hard so that you get the best qualifications that you can in school, and not being sure about what you want to do with those qualifications. So I think that the number one focus right now is, while you've got your school set up around you to give you a fair crack of the whip of getting qualifications which are going to be useful now, I would really focus on getting the best qualifications that you can get. So keep your options open. I don't know how other people feel about that, but the better the qualifications you have, the more options that you have. And then regarding this extrovert introvert thing, please don't think that you have to be some cheerleader, some flipping, whatever, in order to go in for medicine. It's really sad that different specialties are stereotyped, and you do get different types of personalities gravitating to different specialties because of the personalities rather than their abilities. And so surgeons have got a terrible reputation for being loud and extrovert, and then you'll have lab people who tend to be pathologists, public health, who tend to be more introvert. I think that you should absolutely follow what you want to do for your ability. We need quiet, thoughtful surgeons. We need enthusiastic pathologists. We need a diverse set of stereotypes, if you like, set of behaviours across the specialties. So my preference would be to go for someone who is quiet rather than someone who is loud to work with personally. They tend to be the deeper thinkers in my stereotypic way of thinking. Tend to think about what they say before they say it. Don't worry about that.
I love that. James, was there anything you'd like to chip in there?
Yeah, it's just going to be a very quick point just to echo what Iona was saying in regards to sort of, being sort of going quite head, be head down at the moment. You're in school, get your qualifications whilst you have the support network there. A piece of advice which I was given many years ago in regards to sort of education is ultimately, number one, nobody can take your qualifications back off you. Once you have your A levels, once you have your degree, etc., those are behind you for life. Treat whatever your experience and education is as an asset to be traded in against whatever you'd like to do next. So, and this ties perfectly into the idea of if you're not sure what you want to do, that's fine. No one's going to turn around and say, you're okay, you had A level and A level in arts, but I'm sorry, but that means nothing to us. It's still an A level. No one's going to turn around and say your degree in biosciences or medicine or whatever else isn't worth it because it's, it's not a degree. It is a degree. These things are all exchangeable for stuff later on in your career. And especially if you don't know where your path's going to lead, there's not much harm to be had by gaining your experiences and gaining the qualifications, because you may change your mind. And part of the fun is the journey, gaining those experience and qualifications, and just try to enjoy yourself. I've enjoyed my journey. I wouldn't trade in, in an ideal world, I would have gone in at 18 to do medicine, and I would be qualified now. I'd be well on the way to hopefully getting towards being a consultant because I'm in my 30s, but I wouldn't trade in my experience for the world. And yeah, just want to add that in.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think we've given you a lot of information, a lot of brilliant advice from our speakers today. I think it's important to remember that, like James has said and Dr. Iona has said, there are multiple paths that you can go on. You don't have to be on a set path. If things don't go the way you expect them to go, there's always time to reflect and review how you want them to go, whether there's other ways you can go about achieving getting to Rome. If Rome is your happiness, all roads lead to Rome, as James has beautifully said earlier today. So I think that's definitely the parting advice we give to you today. And I hope you've enjoyed the event today. We'll give you some extra time, so we'll finish a little bit earlier today. I remember when I was at your age, my attention span wasn't the longest. It still really isn't. So I'm sure what we'll do is have some conversations with those next to you, your peers, to think about what we've spoken about today. And I would like to, of course, thank our lovely speaker, James and Iona, for joining us today. I'd, of course, also extend my thank yous to BMA Cymru for putting this event on, and we hope you've all enjoyed it. There will also be a recording available also. So if there's anybody else you'd want to pass this on that you think would really benefit from this, do pass it on to them. Like I said, work together and you achieve your goals together. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we wish you all the best. Take care.
Bye.
Goodbye.